Assembly members are about to go live.
Good morning. Good morning, London Assembly members, colleagues and members of the public, both in the chamber and watching the broadcast at home. I am Mary Harpley and I'm the Chief Officer of the Greater London Authority. I am opening this annual meeting of the London Assembly. In a moment, the Chair of the London Assembly for the 2021-22 Assembly year, Assembly Member Boff, will make a speech about his year as Chair. After Assembly Boff has spoken, I will take any other speakers who indicate to me. After that, we will then move to the election of the Chair of the Assembly for the 2022-23 Assembly year. So first, to Assembly Member Boff.
Thank you. It has been a great honour to be the Chair of the Assembly for the previous year. It's been an extremely difficult time for us all. In fact, for 2 years, it's been very difficult for this Assembly because of the pandemic. But I think, along with other Assembly members, we've done our best to make this institution work. And it has been inspiring to see people come together in order to make Londoners' lives better and to get us out of this awful situation that we found ourselves in during the pandemic. Now, we're in new premises now, and this year, of course, has been us moving in. I know we've had some controversy about these new premises, but I think we've got to remember what the opportunities are for this move to the new building. This morning, may I say, I came into work via boat. I've never done it before. The journey was fantastic from the east, and I would recommend to every Assembly member to try and use the Uber boat where it's possible, just to experience it. It's absolutely wonderful service, and it is a symbol of how the centre of gravity of London is moving east and how services can improve for all Londoners. I must thank the Assembly members, of course, for their support, but I've really got to, from the bottom of my heart, thank the Secretariat, who have been such wonderful support. They make it look like I know what I'm doing, and that is some achievement. So I've got to put on record my sincere thanks for all the staff. I'm not going to name any single one of them because otherwise the list goes on forever because there are so many staff. But I've really got to thank from the bottom of my heart those staff to make, for the work that they do for London, and we must never forget them. And also, of course, all the other staff as well, security, who, quite frankly, the security staff we don't consider enough about all the work that they do in order to keep us safe and to keep democracy working. I've also got to thank, I'd like to put on record my thanks for my deputy during this year, Assembly Member Prince, who in his own rather grumpy way has been such a support to me and to the Assembly. I also want to thank the Assembly particularly for moving on from the Andrew Boff chairmanship, because you have now freed me from the shackles of impartiality. And for that, I thank you. It was the bit that I hated the most of my year, but it's a very important function that the chair should be seen to be even-handed to everyone. And finally, I see that my colleague, Assembly Member Onka Sahota, is unopposed as the next chair of the London Assembly. I can't predict that there won't be a last-minute nomination, but at the moment that's what we've got. He's going to be a great ambassador for London. The only thing is of course, we must remember that Assembly Member Dr. Sahota is a GP. Therefore, I would recommend that you only follow instructions that he types, because anything he writes down will be incomprehensible. So, but I know that he's passionate for London, he's passionate for the Assembly, and so I look forward to supporting him in that role over the coming months. So thank you very much. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you.
Thank you. Assembly Member Duvall.
Thank you very much, Chair, for this meeting. Assembly Member Boff, a big thank you on behalf of the group and no doubt our colleagues around the table for the work that you undertook. There were some moments last year, thankfully I wasn't around for those moments, I understand, but you know, you have tried and succeeded, I believe, in conducting the Assembly in a fair and efficient way. And I think it's all been very difficult for us, as you alluded to, in the last, particularly in the last year, but even in the year previously. But you have done a great service for this Assembly and for us all, to be honest, in the way that you've conducted yourself in office. And your party should be very proud in the way that you took up this role and worked with all the political parties on the London Assembly. So thank you from us. On this side, we look forward to your re-emerging role in terms of the political combative exchanges that we'll have over the coming year. And we'll listen carefully, we always listen carefully to what you have to say with your brand of conservatism around on this side of the table. But thank you for your hard work that you've put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Assembly Member Pidgeon.
Thank you very much indeed. On behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group, we'd like to thank Assembly Member Boff for his year as chair, which has been one of the most challenging years in, I think, the 22-year history of the Assembly. Not only dealing with COVID, as you have referenced, but also at the same time, the challenges of our move to this building and having many months where we were between buildings, homeless, not sure where we were going to be meeting and so on. A real challenge for all of us. But at last we're here in the new place. And you talk about the river bus. I must commend the reports from the Transport Committee on the river bus and how we think it could be even better. But, you know, dealing with all of these developments over the last year has been challenging, but you have dealt with them all with such grace. And ahead of the AGM today, I look back at your speech at last year's AGM. We were sitting in the old City Hall, which many of us now mourn, but the old City Hall, seats socially distanced in a really awkward way. But your speech, and you've continued to repeat this time and time again, reminded us that the Assembly is the voice of Londoners and we have a clear role to hold the Mayor to account. And you also pointed out that despite our political disagreements, we're at our strongest when we come together. And that is absolutely the case. And that our role is to speak truth to power. And I think we shouldn't forget those words. And I hope as the year goes on, we start to really develop cross-party as a newly elected, I mean, we're a year in, but a newly elected body to make sure that we do that, as it's crucial for our role. And obviously there are decisions. Chairs always make decisions and you can never please all of the people all of the time. But I think you've been really committed and passionate as chair of the London Assembly and you have served us very well as an Assembly and Londoners during a difficult year. So thank you on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you very much. The joy of coming after my colleagues is that I can genuinely agree with everything that has been said. Andrew, you have been a fantastic chairman, and I think a lot of that is to do with you really believe in the authority and you really believe in what we do, and it does shine through in everything you've done. You did hold us all to order. Sometimes I wasn't so happy about that, but everybody else was at that point, so thank you for that. And I know how tirelessly you've worked as well. We really are proud of you. Len said we should be proud of you. My goodness, we always are, and we have been particularly this year. And as you leave the chair this year, all being well, becoming our deputy chair for the next year, you achieve the rarest of honours, having served, I believe, as the chair, the deputy chair, as well as group leader and deputy leader. And I think the only other person that's done that is Darren Johnson, although I'm not very familiar with what the Greens have always done, but there's a lot of pride that you should take in doing that. And you mentioned it. I have missed you on the group. Really, really missed you. We miss you taking Sadiq Khan to account. We miss your wit and your talent in doing that. And my goodness, we will be very, very happy to have our Andrew back on our side. Thank you very much for this last year on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And Assembly Member Russell.
Thank you. And so finally, on behalf of the City Hall Greens, I just want to pick up on, Andrew, you said that it was all down to the Secretariat staff, or a lot of it was down to the Secretariat staff, the success of your year as chair. But I think you have to take some real credit as well, because you talked about the thing you've hated the most being the shackles of impartiality. But my goodness, you have held on to those shackles of impartiality, and you have done a really excellent job of putting party politics aside. And certainly on behalf of the Green Group, I want to really thank you for that, because that has been really, really impressive, and you've held us all to order throughout your time as chair. But I also want to just thank you for your consistency in your commitment to the LGBT plus community, for the way that you helped the Assembly to react to and comment on the wider international issues, such as the situation in Ukraine. And also, and no one else has mentioned this, I want to thank you for introducing the comfort break, because that has made our meeting so much better and healthier. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. So we have one last speaker, Assembly Member Prince.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying to you, Andrew, it's been a great privilege and honour to serve with you as your deputy. I think you've been a fantastic chair. I don't want to repeat all the wonderful praises that have been showered upon you, quite rightly. Although I would say, as your deputy chair, I do have one criticism, and that's your attendance. It's been far too good. I only got one go as your deputy. But no, you've been brilliant, Andrew. And we'd like to show our thanks. We would buy you flowers, but we thought this would be more appropriate. Oh. Similar design to your own hair.
Oh.
Right, shall we move on? Thank you, everybody. We now move to the formal election of the chair of the Assembly for the 2022-23 Assembly year. And in a moment, I will call for nominations for the office of chair of the London Assembly. In the event of one candidate being nominated, and if it becomes clear that there are no other nominations, I will declare the nominated candidate as being chair of the London Assembly. In the event of other candidates being nominated, I will pause the process and explain the rules in detail. Once the chair is elected, they will conduct the election for the office of deputy chair of the London Assembly. So, can I now have nominations for the office of chair of the London Assembly for the period until the next annual meeting of this Assembly?
Chair, I'd like to propose Onka Sahota to be the next chair of the London Assembly.
Thank you, Assembly Member Duvall.
Move some words, Chair, at this stage.
I'll just take a seconder.
Okay.
Do I have a seconder for the nomination? Assembly Member Hall.
I'd like to second Onka Sahota. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Assembly Member Duvall, do you wish to speak in support of your nomination?
Yes, please. Look, today we meet in this chamber, I think, at a very crucial time, not just for Londoners, but for the country. And many of us around the table can claim victories, both personal and collective, for their parties. I think, in terms of what took place on Thursday night in London and across the country. But for some more than others. I have to say that's my only political point. But nevertheless, there are many people that we've come into contact around this table that have not made it across the line, that won't be participating in democratic processes. Some are friends, some will be just colleagues, and we should just pause a thought for those that weren't successful, but around those and the people that we work with. There's no doubt there will be implications for the coming weeks and months on those elections, but I think over the years, I think is going to be important around as we start to analyse what they mean, both here in London and across the rest of the country. But our challenges are about the coming year, and the year that Onka will oversee as chair of the Assembly on our behalf and be the lead Assembly member for us in terms of our debates and representation of the London Assembly. It is going to be a very challenging year, not just in terms of the debates in this chamber, but also in terms of some of the issues and the background music that we're working to. The cost of living issues, the deflationary issues around pound sterling, all have a major impact on our services, but also on terms of the people we serve and the impact in their daily lives. And in some ways, some of the history of Onka, which many of us won't know around this table, I'm just going to briefly go into about Onka's family arriving here in the UK in the 60s, who first lived in Hayes, the London Borough of Hillingdon, an area that is represented since 2012. Originally from the Punjab, which is where my mum originally originates from, in India, his parents settled in the UK to provide a better future for their children, as with hundreds of other families of that generation. I think that's quite an interesting thing about London and the impact of multiculturalism that makes us makes London great. I'm not afraid to say that. Makes London great. It's one of our key issues and selling points about our communities here in London. We may come from different backgrounds, but we're one community, one Londoners. So it will make an impact about how Onka chairs the London Assembly, but also about how we, I think it says something about how we welcome people to London and how people integrate into our society in terms of some of the difficulties they may have faced from countries they come from. And of course, some of the work that the previous chair had outlined and has spoken about of those arriving from the Ukraine here and previously to that from Afghanistan. It's important that people across London recognise that, reflect it and understand that as they go about their busy lives. Onka's father worked for British Airways as a maintenance worker, eventually establishing a local grocery business. Now his son sits on the Heathrow Community Engagement Board Independent Forum, scrutinising Heathrow's airport and monitoring the challenges that it faced. His early experiences have instilled Onka with a passion for ensuring opportunities for others to succeed, as well as values of aspiration. You can succeed if you will put in the hard work, but also if there are people there to provide you with opportunities, both collectively as individually, in terms of succeed here in London. Fulfilling a lifelong ambition, Onka graduated in medicine in 1989 from Sheffield University and specialised in family medicine post-graduation. He was elected a Fellow of the Royal College of General Practitioners in 2006. His work on the Health Committee, which he first chaired in 2013, illustrated his commitment to decent scrutiny and balance. His role in terms of when we came to discussing the London Ambulance Service was crucial in terms of delivering and continuing delivering some of our high-quality scrutiny work that we undertake across party in this Assembly. So in that sense, moreover, as a doctor, he's provided an invaluable insight into the challenges faced by the NHS, not just from a party political point of view, but I think collectively talking to colleagues about how systems work and what it's like to be on the other side of the table. So I think, and particularly that came to light, I think, during the COVID experience. I think it was welcomed by us all in terms of some of the contribution. I have no doubt that Onka will be a fair chair and will promote the London Assembly to the whole of London and be the voice during these coming difficult economic times. I look forward to this year. I look forward to our work in the Assembly, some of it and the debates. We won't always agree. And Onka will have to sometimes intervene, probably tell me off or two. Sometimes he'll have to intervene and tell some of you lot off or two as well. But by and large, we are passionate about our politics. And Onka, you're passionate about London and about the area that you represent, as well as passionate about this job that you're about to undertake. Thank you very much for putting yourself forward, and I congratulate you on behalf of the Labour Group and my London Assembly colleagues.
Assembly Member Hall, do you wish to speak in support of your nomination?
Yes, I will. Len is speaking as if you've been elected, and we all hope that you will be. So I'll do the same. Before the pandemic hit us, I didn't know you very well. We'd served on health together, but we'd done a lot of sparring, particularly on budget and performance. And I didn't really know what made you tick. But of course, when we had the pandemic, your passion for the health, and particularly for looking after those that were less well off than others, has really hit me. And I really do think that if you bring that towards being the chair, you will do very well, and we will all be very proud. We've also all got to bear in mind when other people say, I never get to see a GP. We can all say, we see one all the time, albeit in a different role. So I wish you luck, Onka. I'm sure you'll be very good.
So, are there any other nominations? Would any other group leader wish to make a speech at this stage? So, in the absence of any further nominations, I formally declare Assembly Member Dr. Onka Sahota, Chair of the London Assembly for the period until the next annual meeting of this Assembly. Congratulations. And Assembly Member Dr. Onka Sahota, please take the chair's seat. The clerk to the committee will then present you with the badge of office, and then I will leave the rest of the meeting to you.
All for electing me as your chair, and I'm grateful to my colleagues who have nominated me. I take this role up with honour and pride. It is really an honour to be chair of the Assembly. Chair, you all know me as a fellow Assembly member, but my constituents often call me the good doctor. Whilst I don't open up that my past very much, but I do today want to share some things with you about my past. My father was not a bus conductor. Sorry, bus driver. But he was a bus conductor. My mother was a factory worker. My father came to this country at the age of 24 with £3 in his pockets. My mother had sold her gold jewellery from her wedding to pay for his passage to this country. He came with £3 because that's all that he was allowed to bring from the Indian subcontinent as a foreign exchange. But he came to this country looking for opportunities to work hard and to grab the opportunities that came his way. And that generation has worked very hard and contributed. And as they say, just as history, we all know for a record how well people have contributed to this country and to particularly to London through their hard work, who made their homes in London. I did live as a child in a house which was overcrowded, in a house that found difficulty paying the energy bills. And I did see notices in shop windows which said, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, and the rooms to let. My grandparents did live with us, but we loved them. They gave resilience to the family, whilst my parents were working hard to make ends meet. And there are still many Londoners who live this sort of lives, and we have a duty to represent them, and we collectively must work hard to improve their lives. We have, as a society, make sure that we level the playing fields of opportunities for everyone, that we do nurture ambition, endeavour, and drive. And it's those very opportunities that made me, as a young man, the son of a working-class immigrant, to go to medical school and become a doctor. And I think I have tried hard to repay my debt to society through my work as a school governor, through a magistrate, and then leading a campaign in West London against the closure of 4 A&Es and 1,000 beds in West London. And it was that campaign that catapulted me to the Assembly. And aren't we all glad that the campaigners did fight that campaign, that we did succeed in the campaign, that we did save those 1,000 beds, that we did prevent the closure of 4 A&E departments, particularly in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic we had. And you've heard many times that London is the most diversity in the world, and that diversity is our strength. And that diversity is represented in this chamber. We all have different backgrounds, different life experiences, and different ideas how to improve things. But we also have common values, the values of freedom of speech, the values of defending human rights, the values of resisting aggression. And we shared those values when we came together to unanimously pass a resolution against the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. This Assembly is the strongest when we speak with one voice. Diversity is a strength, but a greater strength than that is how do we deal with the challenges that diversity throws at us. And in this chamber, we do it through debate, through holding the mayor to account, holding his deputy mayors to account, taking evidence from experts, informing our opinions from the evidence we take through our committees. And we do this within some ground rules, which we've all agreed collectively to follow. And I'm sure you'll expect me to hold you to those ground rules. But I promise to do this impartially, fairly, and without favour. And also, I think we have a collective responsibility to get the message out, what does the London Assembly do? This is a question we often get asked on the streets of London, particularly as we were campaigning over the last few weeks. And we collectively have a job to make sure that Londoners understand what the Assembly does. And we have this job as individuals, but also collectively to work with the Mayor and to tell Londoners how we impact on their lives and how we can improve them. And I hope that you will work with me and the new Deputy Chair to get this message out so we can work collectively with all of you to build that picture in the minds of people of how the Assembly is affecting their lives. And so finally, I want to thank you once again for electing me as Chair, and giving me the opportunity and honour to be your Chair. Thank you very much. Right. So, can I have nominations, please, for the office of the Deputy Chair of London Assembly for the year 2022/23? Sorry, yes.
Chair, I'd like to nominate Andrew Boff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nomination for Andrew Boff.
Thank you. Assemblymember Hall, do you want to say some few words?
I will say very few words because I've said words before, but I think now he's unleashed. I hope you attend every meeting so he can remain unleashed from the chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Len? So, Assemblymember Duvall?
Chair, we look forward to the new incarnation of Andrew Boff in a different role. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? No. Okay. I now declare Assemblymember Andrew Boff as the Deputy Chair for the coming municipal year. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, go on. It's smaller than the other one.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right. Can I now start the formal business? Can I welcome members, officers and the public here in the gallery or watching the webcast today's annual meeting of the London Assembly? Can I ask the clerk, Rebecca Arnold, to confirm any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies for absence from Assemblymember Desai and Assemblymember Devonish, and Assemblymember Rogers is joining the meeting virtually.
Great. Thank you. Before we turn to today's business, I would like to draw your attention to a bundle of tabled papers which have been circulated and will be referred to in due course. Can I ask the Assembly to note the interests set out on the report tabled under item 3? Okay. Do Assembly members have any other disclosable pecuniary interests which relate to the items on the agenda for today's meeting, or any other relevant interests, including any declarations in relation to gifts and hospitality, which are not reflected on the authority's register of gifts and hospitality? Great. Thank you. Assembly members have been sent a bundle of tabled papers which set out the proposed committee structures for 22-23, with terms of reference, memberships and chairs and deputy chairs. Their documents have also been published on the GLA's website. I propose dealing with the agenda items 4, 5 and 6 together, and I'm therefore moving amended recommendations as follows. Can I ask the Assembly to establish the body set out in the tabled Appendix 1 as the ordinary committee for 22-23 Assembly year, with a size, constitution, terms of reference, membership, substitute members, chairs and deputy chairs, as all set out in that appendix.
Agreed.
Thank you. To note, the committee structure as set out in the tabled Appendix 1 complies with proportionality rules in accordance with the provisions of Section 17 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. Agreed. Can I ask the Assembly to confirm the existing delegation to the Chair of the Assembly to decide to hold a confirmation hearing and to decide whether to request the candidate to produce any documents? Okay. Can I ask the Assembly to confirm the previous decisions of the then Business Management and Appointments Committee in respect of committee meetings and work programs as set out at paragraphs 4.48 and 4.49 of the report? Thank you. Can I ask the Assembly to agree the timetable of London Assembly and committee meetings for 22-23 as set out in Appendix 1 of the report? Assembly Member Hall, Pidgeon. Sorry.
I just wanted to point out that the dates for the Lib Dem conference in September aren't accurate, so it's not on the Friday, it's on the Tuesday, so that may affect the Environment Committee, but I've always raised that with the clerk.
Thank you, Assemblymember Pidgeon. If the Assembly is content, perhaps we can agree the timetable subject to that change, and we'll pick it up after the meeting, Chair.
we'll pick it up. Thank you. This is a big piece coming up. Okay. We now turn to agenda item 8, which sets out a number of corporate governance documents for noting and approval. A revised version of standing orders is set out for the Assembly's adoption. As members will see from the report, the Mayor has been consulted on the proposed changes to standing orders in accordance with statutory requirements and has written to confirm that he is content with the proposed amendments. In accordance with Standing Order 1.1, changes to standing orders may only be effected if 2/3 of the whole Assembly is present when a proposal to do so is voted, which I note is the case today. However, only a simple majority of members present and voting is required to approve the changes themselves. Members are also invited to respond to the head of paid service with any comments on the revised GLA expenses and benefits framework in respect of staff appointed under Section 67, Paragraph 2 of GLA Act. Can I confirm if there are any comments which members wish to place on record in relation to that document? Okay. If not, can I ask the Assembly to agree to the recommendations set out in the report and to note the revised GL expenses and benefits framework in terms of its application to staff appointed under Section 67, Paragraph 2 of the GLA Act? Okay. Okay. The Assembly has previously nominated members to represent the Assembly on various outside bodies for the period until the next GLA elections. At the 2021 Assembly meeting, we requested those Assembly members appointed to serve on the outside bodies to the Assembly on an annual basis on respect of their work. Can I therefore ask the Assembly to note the reports by myself and Assembly member Leonie Cooper as set out in the agenda item number 9? Okay. Okay. The Assembly is asked to agree that the 9th of June 2022 plenary meeting principally is used to hold a question and answer session on the work policies of Transport for London. The Assembly is also asked to agree that under Section 61 of the GLA Act 1999, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, in his capacity as Chair of Transport for London, and Andy Byford, the Commissioner of Transport for London, be required to attend the meeting from 10 a.m. to answer questions for which notice will be given in accordance with Section 62 of the Act. Can we agree with that recommendation, please? Agreed. Okay. The next scheduled meeting of the London Assembly will be Mayor's Question Time meeting, which will take place at 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 19th of March 2022, in the Chamber of City Hall.
19th of May, Chair.
So 19th of May, sorry. 19th of May in the Chamber of City Hall. Okay. Yeah. Agreed? Thank you. I note there is no other urgent business, and therefore I think we can end this meeting now. Thank you.
Well done. Well done.